just so everyone knows, we post our recordings on our private Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, so you can check these out afterward. So if you have friends or folks in your network that are sad that they missed this event, we can get the links to you so you can send it along. So we'll just, oh wait, hang on. I always have so many things I have to do for this. I have to admit people and run the show. It's so fun. All right.
You're fine.
What?
Do a great job. You're good at this.
Oh, thanks. Excellent. Well, we'll just do a quick intro so you know who the hosts are of the meeting. I'm Suzanne Moore. I'm a realtor in Bend, Oregon. Even though I'm not currently in Bend, I still work sometimes remotely, and usually remotely in the winter because I generally don't like the cold. So I am joining you right now from France. So I'm 9 hours ahead. I may have had a glass of rosé with dinner, so just heads up on that. But yeah, I started the Central Oregon Investor Network, and now it has evolved to include a lot of different things. But really the goal of this is to bring all of us together, not only from Central Oregon, but from really all over, to learn about real estate investing topics. And my goal with the Central Oregon Investor Network and our shared goal with our real estate business is to help people make passive income so you can use your time however you want. So Sarah, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Willis, and Suzanne and I have a great relationship where I hold down the fort here in Bend when she travels and vice versa. I'm also a realtor and real estate investor, and I've got some out-of-state properties and a few here in town as well. And yeah, Suzanne really gave the gist of the rest of what we're here to do. Just connect people, teach you guys things.
Awesome. All right, so today is all about the power of self-directed IRAs, and I will say that this was a member chosen topic. We did put out a vote to folks on our Facebook group between this and advanced tax planning strategies, and this was the winner. So we're excited because this has been something on my list for a long time, and I think it's a great tool, and Matthew will talk about this, for those of us who have been in or are currently in corporate roles where we have these 401ks that we've been putting money into and the company's been putting money into, and maybe we want to leave those companies, or we've already left, or we've got these rollover IRAs sitting somewhere doing something, nothing, I don't know, it depends. This is really the way to put those to use in a way that you have more control, and it can achieve your real estate investing goals. So that's why I think it's super exciting, and Matthew will talk to us all about the details. So we'll just do our quick introductions like we normally do, and then we'll hear from Matthew as well. So would love to just hear, most people are in the room, but we do have Troy and Kelsey on the line with us, which is awesome. So we always just love to hear who's here. Oh, never mind. Sorry. And then wait, let me get to the page of what we want to hear from you. Who's here, and if you're an aspiring or experienced investor, and just what you're hoping to get out of today's meetup. So I like to start with the first person that arrived. So Caitlin, I think that's you.
Yes, hello, my name is Caitlin. My company is called Soul Path Properties, and I'm a short-term rental property manager. I just moved to Bend really recently, and I'm also an aspiring investor, and I just would love to meet other investors, real estate agents, and people who need a better property manager than the one that they have.
Excellent. Welcome. We're glad to have met you today. So thanks for coming to the office. And then I think, Catherine, you joined us next.
Good. Catherine Baker. I live here in Bend and have for several years. I would call myself an experienced investor. I've actually been using my IRA funds for probably 25 years to invest in real estate. And about 15 years ago, formed an LLC that I've been using pretty exclusively for real estate investing. So I always like coming to meetings like this because I always pick up little nuances and new ideas.
And it sounds like you found us through your friend Elizabeth. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes. Excellent. Well, we'll keep going in order, and let's see if I remember who showed up next. I think it was Dave.
Yep, it's me. Hi, Dave Budnick. I'm a Bend resident last 5 years. I'm a pretty experienced real estate investor. I've done single family rentals, multifamily rentals. I own a mobile home park in Mississippi, and don't need any property management there. I finally have a good one, and we're doing some investing in a senior living property coming up over the next year. So I'm going to build one from scratch. So that's my story.
And Dave was our guest speaker last month for, I don't think anyone on the call was at that event, which was also very well attended, just different audience. So Dave was talking to us about veteran housing in partnership with Landon Moore, who is not my relative, but we share a last name, who is actually, Landon is how we found Matthew. So, we're all just one big happy family here. So thank you for being a guest speaker. We always appreciate having you come back as an attendee for other topics. And then Elizabeth, I think you were next.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I do have a few investment properties here and in California, and a commercial property as well. I want to learn more about this self-directed IRAs, so that's why I'm here.
Excellent. And then Cherie.
Hi, I'm Cherie. I've lived here in Bend for 14 years. I am a licensed agent as well, but only on referral basis. I'm a outside of the state investor. I have 6 stores in the Midwest, and I've been learning about the SDIRA mainly for private money lenders as a way for them to partner with me with the mission that I do. So.
Love it. And Cherie is also a past guest speaker. So then we had Troy. Troy, welcome.
Oh, hi. I'm at Starbucks right now, so I can't really talk long. But yeah, I'm in the Dell area. I'm just curious about the self-directed IRA. Just saw you on Meetup. I'm looking at possibly investing in Oregon, so we'll need a real estate agent.
All right. Well, we'll make sure you have our info. And
Thank
tell
you.
us again, Troy, where you're located.
I'm in the Seattle area.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I hope you get a delicious beverage this afternoon. All right, Kelsey, welcome.
Hey folks, my name's Kelsey. I actually live here in Bend, and I'm in Bend today, but just on a quick lunch break. So nice to see you all. Lived in Bend for about 6 years, and I am an aspiring investor looking for just general knowledge out of today's session.
Fabulous. And Alicia, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. I'm Alicia. I am here in Seattle. I am a newish investor. I do have 3 doors. My business model is I focus on co-living as well as doing a little bit of private money lending. And what I'm looking to get out of this meeting is really just kind of some guidance, learn something new, as well as just do a little bit of networking, meet some new friends.
Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up, Alicia, because we love if people are comfortable sharing contact information. So, Sarah, maybe we can have just a little sign-up sheet going around in the room that we can then plug into the meeting. Whatever you're comfortable sharing, we don't, we're obviously only going to share information that you're comfortable with. So maybe you have a website or a social media account that you're happy to share with other people. And the goal is for this to create a community. And that's truly what we have done is, we know almost everybody in the room and most people online too, because we've seen and worked with you and been in various meeting topics together over the last few years. So feel free to put in the chat if you're online any contact information that you're comfortable sharing, and then you can snag other people's info from there so you can stay in touch after our meeting. All
I'll
right.
share anything, the info shared here on the Facebook page later.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We forgot.
Yeah.
Did we miss somebody?
Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan, thank you. Tell us about yourself, Jonathan.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for about 16 years, started flipping homes in LA and have a portfolio of several apartment buildings in the Midwest. And I also just got my property manager's license here and trying to build up that business. And also simultaneously looking to buy some buildings here as well.
And just make sure we all know what you're focusing on with your property management.
Apartments.
Yeah, larger.
Yeah, like 4+
units.
units. Yeah, just because there's a lot of property managers in town that are doing more like this houses and that kind of thing. So I want to focus more on a little larger stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. Kansas City and Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Specifically Norman, Oklahoma, by the University of Oklahoma.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have some clients who are buying apartment buildings, so we would love to work with you. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we can get that all.
Yeah, I actually had a 12 unit under contract, but it fell out because they had some things and stuff that they needed to figure out. Yeah. But,
Got it.
Perfect. So we've got some contact info in the chat already. Thank you, Alicia. And like we said, we'll put the chat transcript in on our private Facebook page. And maybe we can share that link out as well in person. I can send you the link, Sarah. That's really easy to share. And the reason I want to say that is because Alicia shared that she's a private money lender, and we always love connecting people with private money lenders. So fabulous. All right. Well, I'm going to let Matthew get started. We're talking about self-directed IRAs and why they can help you either become a private money lender or find more of them. So take it away, Matthew.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. And you guys are an awesome group. This is already one of my favorite webinars I've been a part of. So thanks for letting me, be a part. And, like we've already talked about, my goal is really to be educational today and talk about self-directed plans at large, primarily self-directed IRAs, self-directed 401ks, and how you can use, old retirement funds to actually invest in, alternative assets. So thanks again for letting me jump on. And will you be my PowerPoint clicker? Okay, perfect. Awesome. I'm ready to get started when you are. We can just go ahead and jump into the first thing here. So sounds like many of you are experienced and some of you have self-directed accounts, so you're really up to speed as to what these kinds of accounts are. But I'll just start from step one here. Basically what a self-directed retirement account is and what its aim is to take the advantages of a traditional retirement account. By that I mean kind of your typical IRA and 401k. And the advantage of that type of account is that you get to use either tax deferred money to invest or Roth funds to invest, in stocks, mutual funds, index funds, things of that nature. But in a self-directed plan, take those same concepts using either tax deferred funds or Roth funds, but you're able to invest in many more assets: real estate, cryptocurrency, precious metals, you name it. Basically, you are just widening your horizons of what you're able to invest in with those retirement funds. And feel free to jump into the next slide there. And I'll say this too: feel free at any point during the presentation, pause, ask questions. I'm not picky. I love the engagement. So if you
I'm curious, what percentage of people that you've worked with are investing in crypto with their IRAs?
Yeah, I'd say a select few.
Okay.
The people that do, they are very knowledgeable in that space. I'd say the vast majority of our client base, I'd say 80 to 90%, they're wanting to invest in, real estate syndications, multifamily projects, commercial real estate, you name it. So real estate largely. I always like to mention that it's an option in case anybody is interested in that particular asset class. So
yeah, I had no idea until we started putting our presentation together that was even an option for self-directed IRAs.
Absolutely. Cool. And then I always like to touch base on this too, just why somebody usually is interested in this type of account. At least in my experience, the people that I've connected with that end up taking advantage of a self-directed plan, again, whether it's an IRA or a 401k, is that they're just discontent with the traditional system in some capacity. Like I mentioned, for all of you that have had a 401k or an IRA at some point, you're just limited in your investment options. There's only so many mutual funds and index funds out there that are going to give you just exceptional returns. And then there's a piece to that too, where again, just in the traditional system, you are only limited to Wall Street assets. That's all you've got available to you. It's hard to, find a custodian to be willing to work with you on investing in an alternative asset outside of, their platform. They pretty much don't exist. That's why self-directed plans have become a thing over the last few years, at least, become more well-known. Secondly, a lot of investors want real control. In your traditional 401k, money is just being taken out of your paycheck, and then that percentage is just being invested in a mutual fund. And that's great for some people, but for others, they want to actually have tangible control and really decision-making power over where their money is deployed. We'll kind of get into a case study later of somebody who's a client of ours, and just even a breakdown of how he's used his plan to invest in alternative assets. But at the end of the day, you want more control. And for a lot of people that have self-directed plans, they are people like this group where they're already invested in real estate in some capacity. They have the knowledge and the desire to actually put their retirement funds into work in that type of asset class. I've kind of already touched on the third one here. Your retirement funds can be performing better, especially if you looked at your returns and your 401k over the last 10, 20 years, and you're averaging, 8% annually. There's many real estate syndications out there that, you could get 15, 20%, if not more. So again, just a better option potentially. And then actually having real diversification, in my opinion, you can, with the self-directed plan, be invested in all at the same time. You could be invested in the stock market, real estate, cryptocurrency, precious metals. You could do private money lending, as I know Alicia mentioned, and some others have as well. Rather than just one index fund, where sure, you are diversified to some capacity in that, but to be really widespread in your investments, that's a big benefit of a self-directed account there.
So Catherine, since you did share that you've done this already, I'm curious which of these reasons drove you to start a self-directed IRA, or if you had a different reason for doing so.
Probably different for me. I'm a real estate junkie, and using my IRA is just an additional source of funding which I had available to continue to invest in real estate, in addition to all the traditional ways that I invest through 401ks and IRAs.
Excellent.
Really well said. Absolutely.
Is anybody else in the room actively using a self-directed IRA? No?
I've invested in a friend's syndication through IRA.
Yeah, I guess I am. I've got one self-directed IRA invested in a multifamily property. And the reason I'm here is we set up a self-directed 401k off our C Corp. And we are planning on rolling over a couple of old IRAs into it to fund it and use that to do something interesting.
Awesome.
Good deal. I love it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about who we are at the eQRP company. We have 4 pillars that we stand on as a company, and the last 2 are kind of tied together. But and the first one is really nothing new. This is really the core of all self-directed retirement account providers, but it is control, giving the account holder control to actually make the investments that they want through their account. So giving that through, you'll hear the phrase checkbook control a lot from self-directed retirement account providers. Again, just really giving you the authority to sign off on transactions. I know I forgot your name in the back, but you're investing in a multifamily syndication with your friends, others private money lending, but you have the ability to network with people that are actually, around you in your circle, invest in their deals. But, at the bottom line, giving somebody control over the account. Secondly, we just believe in support. In the way that we do it it's a little bit different than maybe some other custodians. So at least for me, I worked with, I think it was Midland Trust Company a few years ago, and they're a little bit of a smaller firm. And I just had a 1-800 number that I could call, and that was about it. And I talked to somebody new every time. They were hesitant to give me really any kind of advice or support. Again, that was just my experience. But in our model, we just give all of our members account managers. So you'll always have the same person that you're reaching out to, which is a benefit. And you get their phone number, their email, their calendar link. It's a little bit easier to get a hold of us in that sense, since you have one primary person dedicated to your plan. And I do see a hand. This is cool that Google Meet can do this. I'm sorry, I'm a newbie to Google Meet. This is fun. Lori, I'm happy to answer any question if you have one. And if
Lori,
not,
did you raise your hand?
Lori, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
all good. No
Sorry,
worries.
bye.
No problem.
Any questions?
And then-
Yeah,
Or wait,
I think we typically do. Yeah, I mean, Matthew, that's up to you. You're leading. Do you want to take questions throughout, or do you want to wait till the end?
Oh, sure. No, right now it's perfect.
After number one, control. I've heard for many, many years that the IRS doesn't like the control that people have over the checkbook control, that they feel that it can be abused far too easily, and it's really not on their radar when it comes to IRS audits. Have you heard anything about that, or has that kind of died down with the underfunding and understaffing at the IRS level?
That's a really good point. I've been here for about 3 years now. And when I first came on board, that was kind of a hot topic. And I was even coming in on the tail end of that. And I'll get into a little bit later our model versus kind of the traditional self-directed IRA. But to get back to your point, just in my experience, that has died down. And what I think you're specifically referring to is the checkbook LLC specifically that the IRS mentioned. I think there was a ruling a couple of years ago. But I can't recall the exact terms of that. But they didn't like the fact that some people had LLCs directly tied to IRAs, and they were using that to get the checkbook control. We do, and again, I'll touch on this a little bit later. We prefer, and it doesn't always work for everybody, so I'll be forthright with that, and we'll get into the qualification piece a little bit later too. We started primarily as a company offering a self-directed 401k plan, a little bit different from a structure standpoint. So in the self-directed IRA, to get that checkbook control piece that we mentioned, you do have to have that LLC that then establishes a bank account. And then you get the funds inside of that account that you can invest. In the self-directed 401k, you can have an LLC, you don't have to, but that actual 401k plan can have a bank account in its own name rather than having the additional LLC. And that's how a lot of our members have that structure. So there's no additional LLC, it's just directly with the plan that they have that account set up with. I don't know if that directly answers your question. So let me know if there's any follow-up on that.
So you just think it's died down, not for any particular reason, but just because you haven't heard anything recently?
And that's not a great answer, but that's what I understand. Correct. That it's just died down. And we've had people that we've worked with in the past that moved from that structure to either they all together got out of the self-directed space or moved to the 401k space. But then we had others that remained kind of in that structure, and we haven't heard anything. So
I have the LLC structure, and I've had it for 5 years and haven't had any issues.
Yep.
Well, I've had mine for 15 years,
Oh, okay.
but it doesn't show up on the radar of the IRS when they do audits because it's not taxable. It's not fully taxable.
And now that we're talking about it, there are many trust companies specifically that even have it on their website. And even now that we're talking about it, it's coming to mind that when I did work with Midland Trust Company personally a couple of years ago, they offer that as a part of their services. And I know that for them, they're highly regulated. I work closely with a guy who used to work for a trust company. Now he works here. And the fact that they can even offer that, I doubt that it's being scrutinized, just again, because trust companies are so highly regulated. If it were a gray area, they'd likely refrain from it altogether. But the fact that they are makes me feel more confident personally.
Okay.
Cool. And then third and fourth here, I'll be quick on this point, but we do also tie into, and we call it a membership. I think I've thrown that out there. We call our clients members. It's just kind of an internal lingo that we use. But for our members, we have an online community. And inside of that, we try to give as many resources as possible. We'll have conversations with multifamily syndicators, fund managers. We even had, I think, a real estate agent on recently, different things like that to just provide education resources and just the ability to really network. We have a lot of clients that are already in groups like this that have got connections in place, and once they do, rollover funds or start a plan, they're highly connected and have opportunities for their funds. Others don't, and so it can be a really valuable resource for those that don't. And it's just fun that so many of our members, we've got about 2,000, 2,500-ish clients total, and it's just fun to see them all engage on the platform and ask questions and get connected to each other. So I'd like to mention that as well. And feel free to jump in the next one. Perfect. And then Suzanne wanted me to touch on some pitfalls, or even maybe another way to say it is just things to be cautious of when you're using a self-directed account. I always like to point out for people that are new to this concept, we've just had some people that when they get on that initial call, they're like, oh, great, I can use this for, just any kind of rental property, and then all the profits flow back to me personally. And just remember that although it's different, it's not your traditional retirement account at a Schwab where everything's just pretty much hidden, kind of, it's tucked away forever because you get more control, I think, over a self-directed plan. Some people think that they can just take the proceeds and run with it. But just remember that, this is still a retirement vehicle. And then as you invest those funds and the funds get returned back to the plan, all the profits, all the cash flow need to go back to the plan and still continue to grow tax deferred. It's not, we just like to say, it's not today money, it's still tomorrow money at the end of the day. Some other challenges, I talked about this a second ago, but some have a hard time finding a deal to invest in. But I think I've come to realize that some people, or at least recently, people are coming from communities like this and they've already got a network that they're engaged with. So this is a group that I'm probably preaching to the choir. A lot of you are already connected and have resources available to you. And then lastly, I always like to point this out that the IRS does set disqualified persons and there's disqualified transactions. If you literally Googled disqualified transactions or disqualified persons IRS, there's a short article about who those are in great detail. But the one thing I'll point out is some people, let me back up. A lot of our clients invest in multifamily syndications, or really just syndications at large. I usually add multifamily, but it's a ton of different asset classes there. But you can't invest with disqualified persons, and who those persons are pretty much anybody in your vertical lineage. So for me, if my dad was putting together a syndication, I couldn't invest my retirement funds with him. If they're in your vertical lineage, they're considered a disqualified person. Same thing goes with children and grandchildren. So anybody in your vertical lineage you don't want to invest with. Some other disqualified transactions, really one of the primary ones to be aware of is the IRS just calls it self-dealing. But basically that just means you couldn't use, I talked to somebody earlier who he's starting his own business, and he had a question about using his retirement funds to basically fund his own business, which there is a feature in the self-directed 401k to take a personal loan. So that's an option for him, but you couldn't invest your retirement funds directly in your business for funding. That would be self-dealing. So I always like to point those out as well. Any questions on those?
I just wanted to point out, you mentioned disqualified persons are in vertical lineage, but what's saying and what is silent is horizontal. So siblings are okay and they're not disqualified.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah, they're siblings. They're so funny to me. Siblings are not disqualified, just like you said. So we have plenty of people that have a sibling putting a deal together and they invest with the sibling. So great point.
I think they forgot to put it in the
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. And Alec, we'll go back on that.
Are also not disqualified, right? Aunts and uncles and cousins.
No, those are sort of vertical and horizontal.
Right, yeah.
So those parents.
I don't think they're allowed. What, Matthew, what about aunts and uncles?
Good question. Aunts and uncles.
Sure,
I can Google it right now. Gosh, I know that like stepchildren are disqualified, step grandchildren or step grandparents are. I'm not sure about aunts and uncles. I can Google that if we'd like, but off the top of my head, I need to look it up.
I like the sibling workaround though.
Mm-hmm.
Great little loophole.
Absolutely.
Do you set up solo 401k?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Set up 401 solo 401s?
Yes, we do set up a solo 401k, and I think that might even be the next slide, but or it's one or two from now. So we set up. There are really two main forms of self-directed accounts. The self-directed IRA is the most common. I feel like SDIRA has become slang for self-directed plans, just because the self-directed IRA is way more common than the solo 401k or self-directed 401k. There's a lot of different ways to say it, but we do use both plans. There's just a qualifier for the self-directed 401k where there's not with self-directed IRA. You need to be engaged in self-employed business activity, or basically you need to be self-employed or own your own business in order to qualify for the self-directed 401k option versus self-directed IRA. There's not that qualification. But I'll get into more detail here in just a second as well. A very generic structure here. We've touched on this a little bit here, but how it works in short, and this is for, again, both the self-directed IRA option and the self-directed 401k, is first the retirement account itself is established, and that's a relatively short process that takes a day or two. And then from there, we will work with you on creating the actual checking account that is tied to the retirement account. So like you two were mentioning earlier, you have the LLC accounts, checkbook control, and that's what you're really using to invest out of. You log into that checking account, and then you're making the decisions from there. And then thirdly, investing. So if you just look at the chart there, pretty straightforward. First, the retirement account gets established. And that's what the IRS sees there, is we register the retirement account in your name. Secondly, at least for us, other retirement account providers would be different, is we have a banking partner that we work with just to make the process more streamlined and efficient. So we help you create a checking account with that partner, and then from there, give you the car keys to invest in. Again, those are just a few examples. I should put private money lending in there. That's been really popular over the last year or two. So that's an option as well in there. And then, okay, here's where we can get into some weeds here pretty quickly. So please pause me at any point if there's any questions. So again, there's both types of plans. We call our version of the self-directed 401k an eQRP 401k. That's just our trademark on that type of plan. We don't have a trademark on the self-directed IRA side. So if you hear me say eQRP plan, I'm usually referring to the 401k. So I apologize if it gets confusing there, but again, stop me if there's any questions. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the reason we prefer the 401k gets pretty obvious quickly for a few reasons. First, that contribution limit is $69,000 for 2024, whereas the self-directed IRA contribution limit is $7,000. I get asked why it's so much higher in the 401k versus the IRA. Great question. I'm not the IRS, and it's like just so hard to guess why they made it so much higher. My speculation is just that a 401k, its initial intent was to be a business retirement plan, and so inside of that $69,000 bucket, if you were to just work at a company like Google or Apple, that $69,000 contribution total is cumulative between what Google can contribute for you and what the employee can contribute. So that's the max contribution amount there. Whereas the individual or the IRA stands for individual retirement account, I think they just reduce that substantially, since it's just the individual contributing to the plan rather than employee and employer. Secondly, on the 401k side, you can take a personal loan. I think I hinted at that earlier. That can be really advantageous for a variety of different reasons. So you can borrow up to $50,000 max out of a 401k plan. You do obviously make payments back to the plan over time at a set interest rate. And that period is always 5 years. That's defined by the IRS there. But the nice thing with the personal loan, once you've taken that out of the plan, you can use that to do anything. So I've seen people use it for things like college tuition, literally paying for a vehicle. Others have used it for business funding. There's a variety of different options as to what you can do with a personal loan. So it's a nice feature to have if you need it. I'll touch on this one here as well. So there is a UDFI exemption in the 401k that doesn't exist in the IRA. And so what that really is simplified is if you were to invest in I've said this a couple times already, but it's a good example to give. If you invested in a multifamily project and there's a loan on it, so there's debt financing involved, that can pass down a tax that's called a UBIT tax to a self-directed IRA investor. That can get pretty hefty, the UBIT tax can, for that self-directed IRA account holder. However, in the 401k structure, it's exempt from that UDFI piece, which stands for unrelated debt financed income. So all that to say, you don't incur UBIT tax inside of a 401k when there's UDFI involved, whereas in an IRA you do. So again, one of the reasons why we do prefer that vehicle over the IRA. I'll keep going on the list here. It can be easier to diversify. And what I mean by that is a lot of the times in a self-directed IRA, it can be challenging to invest, keep a portion of your funds inside of the stock market and be invested in, other asset classes. Whereas with an eQRP, it's much easier to actually still have funds inside of a brokerage account that's tied to the plan and be invested in precious metals and cryptocurrency and all those things all inside of one account. Usually with a self-directed IRA, if you want to invest in a brokerage account or do something like that, if the custodian would allow for it, it usually is pretty expensive, but at the same time, you could just have funds still in a separate IRA with a Fidelity or a Charles Schwab. So there's ways to work around that even with the IRA option. It's just nice for really the next point there was having account consolidation. So inside of the 401k plan, you can actually have pre-tax and Roth funds inside of one plan, whereas with an IRA, many of you have Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs, or a Roth IRA and a rollover IRA, and those can't be combined, which thankfully inside of a 401k, they can, just for account consolidation and keep things a little bit more streamlined. But then lastly, and this is the caveat, which I mentioned earlier, is you have to, at a minimum, be engaged in self-employed activity. And what I mean by that is the IRS doesn't set a minimum revenue requirement for how much you generate as a self-employed person. So again, there's no threshold on that, but it needs to be substantial. So we always tell people, some are looking to start their own business or, do something that would qualify them for the self-directed 401k, but you want to be putting forth substantial effort, even if you don't earn a profit at the end of the day. So even internally, we have an affiliate marketing program. So we have members that actually, they're heavily involved in real estate or have communities and followings themselves. And, full transparency, we will partner with them. They will help market the eQRP to their group. And then if anybody comes through their group that signs up for a plan, we'll give them a commission for it, which again, that type of activity is what qualifies them for a 401k. So we have members that do that as an option to qualify. So again, some people look at that list and they just think, okay, that's a great, I would take advantage of the personal owner. I want the UDFI exemption piece. So I will do whatever it takes to start, I'll engage in a side hustle or do something to hit that qualifier mark. But on the self-directed IRA standpoint, if you don't want to have to worry about any extra work on the side, you can still, like many of you have, invest in alternative assets, and it works just fine. And it's a great vehicle to do so. It just misses out on a few of those benefits. But for us in our structure, regardless of whichever account fits best for you, you get checkbook control. We do flat fees. So a lot of companies will do either transactional fees or an asset under management fee. So they'll take a percentage of the value of the account. We do one flat setup fee and then one flat fee each year. And I'll get into that toward the end of the year, just to be crystal clear on what those fees are. And then again, both you'd be a part of the online community. And then Suzanne brought up a good point. I'd like to mention this as well, that regardless of whatever plan you do, you're not capped on the amount of rollovers that you can do. So kind of a random example, but say you have a deal in mind where they're requiring $50,000 to put into the deal. You don't have to roll over your entire account value if it's more than that into a self-directed plan. You can start with that $50,000 portion, invest that, and as you feel comfortable, if you wanted to move more in the future over to the self-directed plan, you can do that. So that there's no cap that the IRS sets on how many rollovers you can do each year. I know that was a lot in that slide. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to dive in.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you use a combo of Roth and pre-tax money to invest in the same asset?
Yep, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then it's like the returns just get funneled into each account according to percentage?
Correct. Yes, and that's why we usually suggest you don't have to do it this way, but it's easiest to if you wanted to. So there's the one plan, and the one plan has the two buckets of Roth and pre-tax. If you want to combine to invest in a deal, it's usually best to make it an even split. If you can do 50-50, that's great. Just to make sure from a bookkeeping perspective, it's easier to keep up with, but you can totally do that.
Okay, that's interesting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You're very familiar with Mark Kohler and Matt Sorensen from Directed IRA. I think they're out of Idaho and Arizona, and anyway, big YouTube channel that I watch. So they talked about like a backdoor where you can take your rollover 401, put it initially in a regular IRA, and then because it's cheaper, less fees or something, and then transfer that into an SD IRA. Is that, did I say that right? Do you have more to add to that?
Yeah.
Some of the taxes, I think.
There is a backdoor. There's a backdoor. What do they call it? There's a mega backdoor or something, and then a backdoor something. And I'll be honest, I've seen some people try to do it. I fully don't understand the value of it, to be transparent, because what you can do is, so again, in the 401k side, because you can do a combination of both pre-tax and Roth within the same plan. You can. We're just going to use a very hypothetical example here. If you had $100,000 from an old 401k that you rolled over into an eQRP 401k plan, there's no taxes associated with that rollover. So it's really no cost to actually move the funds to a self-directed plan in that sense. And then I think what they're getting at, and again, I could be missing the point. I'm sorry if this doesn't really directly answer the question, but if you wanted to convert those funds from pre-tax to Roth, you can actually do that inside of the plan. Anytime you do a Roth conversion, there is going to be taxes on that. There's, in my opinion, I'm not a CPA, so I will preface with that, but there's really no way to avoid that because you're moving funds from pre-tax to post-tax, so therefore it is a taxable event. You're going to pay, in my understanding, ordinary income tax on that amount. So the backdoor concept doesn't make sense because to me, at least from my understanding, again, I don't want to try to step on anybody's toes there, but if you are setting up a traditional pre-tax IRA and then ultimately moving it to a Roth plan, you still are going to pay taxes on that. So again, I'm sorry if that doesn't totally answer the question. That's just the best understanding I have of it.
The backdoor provision is not a way to save taxes. It's a way to be able to move pre-tax dollar into a Roth if you exceed the IRS income limitations. That's the back provision. So you still pay your taxes for the conversion, but it allows you to do it.
And then from moving forward, any funds that you put into that self-directed is not taxed, right?
Self-directed what? Roth or traditional?
IRA. I don't know them all, so not sure what I know, but not the 401, but I only hear about the SD IRA that you would, and I don't know if that's called a Roth or not, but so anything that's put into the Roth, is that taxed? As you continue feeding
anything you put into a Roth IRA has already been taxed.
Yes.
You've already paid the taxes on those dollars. Anything that goes into a traditional IRA, you haven't paid the taxes.
Right. Okay. All
Does
right.
that make sense?
Yeah. So like if a SDRA invested in an entity, then the interest or whatever they're getting paid back into that IRA, that's not taxed, right?
Yeah, and so that's a good distinction. So an SD IRA is more of a broad term. So you can have an SD IRA that is traditional, and you can also have an SD IRA that is Roth. So that's a point of clarification. So if you have a traditional SD IRA, it's pre-tax money that you have not paid taxes on. But you could also have a Roth SD IRA that you have paid taxes on, so the gains are tax-free. And that's one of my points from earlier that I may have not articulated clearly. So in that IRA concept, you would want to have, if you wanted to have a mixture of pre-tax funds and Roth funds, you would need to have two separate accounts. Whereas with the 401k option, you can still have pre-tax and Roth funds, just a part of the same plan. So to answer your question, with the self-directed IRA, you could do either. really just depends on what you're looking to do. So some people, they want to reduce their taxable income in that year. So maybe the traditional option is better. For others, they want to go ahead and take the tax hit now for the tax-free gains.
Yeah, take a tax hit on the smaller amount of money, obviously. Then
Correct. Yep. Good point.
It looks like Tyler has a question as well.
Yeah, thanks. I had a couple actually. So for the taxes on, say it's a real estate property and it's a Roth that you're investing in real estate, and then you're getting, you know, monthly rent from that, that would still be considered tax free, or how does that work with real estate?
Yeah, good question. Usually, again, I'm going to say I'm not a CPA just so I can make that disclaimer, but if you're using a Roth IRA to invest in real estate, the returns are tax-free going back to the plan, as long as they remain in the plan.
Okay. And then
as long as you're not leveraged. If you have a loan on that property, you then generate UBIT to the extent of the loan. So it does get a little complicated.
Okay. Gotcha. And then I just had a second question just about the personal loan for the, so how does that work? I guess if, so say, you know, investing in real estate. So would you take out a personal loan to invest in a piece of real estate for down payment or whatever? Or would you, you know, use the self-directed IRA by itself to be that kind of owner? What would be the pros and cons of doing that, or if you can?
Yeah. So the personal loan option, it does only exist in the self-directed 401k side. And the reason somebody would use that, or so we'll go to both schools of thought there. So if you want to invest in a deal that you're not going to be a part of, you're just going to be a passive investor, you can just leave those funds in the retirement account, invest, and then experience the tax deferred growth on the investment there that you have in real estate. Where the personal loan option could be handy is, say you personally, you want to buy a fix and flip. You wouldn't want to use your retirement dollars to buy a property that you're going to purchase in your personal name. That's disqualified, the self-dealing component that we talked about earlier. So you could actually borrow funds from your retirement account, you know, again, up to the $50,000 mark, use that. So it's not tied to your retirement account necessarily. You're just borrowing funds from the retirement account, using it on your own here, and then making payments back to the retirement account. So as far as the retirement account is concerned, at that point, you're just borrowing from it. That's all that it is. Then again, you could just invest funds from the account as long as it's not a disqualified transaction there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, thank you.
Okay.
And I guess I'm not sure who made the point too, but I'm also a big fan of Mark Kohler and those guys. But yeah, and they talk a lot more about the self-directed IRA,
Totally.
At least from my experience, and I need to dive deeper into it. But I don't know, but based on this slide and kind of what we're talking about, it sounds like the self-directed 401k is like the better option. So I don't know if you could speak to that at all, or
yeah,
I mean, obviously they're for different things, but yeah.
And that's why, yeah, and to hit on that note too. So when we started as a company, we've been around for about 10 years now. We did solely the 401k for probably the first 8 years. We just preferred that option, just for all of the benefits included. It's just that caveat about you needing to be either self-employed or a business owner in some capacity to actually qualify for that type of plan. We just felt like, you know, there were people being excluded from that mark, or didn't want to bother. They couldn't, they're full-time W-2, they're tied up. There's no way that they can hit that benchmark. So we wanted to make sure that we offered the self-directed IRA as well, which we've done over the last couple of years. So we even try to help people, you know, qualify if they can, you know, meet certain benchmarks there. But yeah, just from a feature standpoint, I would agree that the 401k is better, but it doesn't always work for everybody.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have a W-2 job and you have like a side business, do you still qualify for self-directed 401?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure can. That's actually, I'll be honest, that's how a lot of our members are. A lot of them are full-time W-2 and do something on the side and qualify that way. Absolutely.
And then who determines the interest rate on the personal loan option?
Good question. The IRS is pretty clear on that. Generally, we always suggest that you set the rate at prime rate. which I think it just dropped yesterday. So I think it's 7.5% now. And that's just the best to be at. Some people we would just be weary of. You don't want to jack it up too high because then the IRS could say you're just trying to funnel extra money into your plan. Or if you set it too low, then that could cause a red flag too. So we say set it at prime rate. That's what's common too. Like if you had a 401k with Fidelity or Empower and you wanted to take a loan out of that 401k, they're likely going to set it at prime interest rate. So that's just industry standard, and that's what we recommend.
I have an answer on the aunts and uncles.
Oh,
great.
IRS code, IRC code. Aunts and uncles are the same bucket as siblings, so they are not
There you go.
disqualified. Yeah,
And that's why I started to think of it like a tree. It seems like pretty much just parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids disqualified, and then outside of that, it can get a little bit more lenient. So good to know.
Branches are not
What about
disqualified.
spouses then?
Spouses are. Good point.
Okay. All right.
They're disqualified. Yes.
Can I just ask, and I feel like you covered this, but I just want to clarify. So the contribution limit for the 401k is 69,000, but that limit is based on the amount of income you bring in from your self-employed activity. So if you're only bringing in $1,500 a year for your eQRP affiliate links, then your contribution limit is going to be significantly lower, right?
Great call out. Yes, absolutely. And that's why, thankfully, too, regardless of who you are, you can contribute to a traditional IRA as well as a 401k. So some people, if they're not making really substantial income to contribute to the self-directed 401k, they could set up a Schwab or a Fidelity traditional IRA, fully fund that with the $7,000 and roll that over to their eQRP. But great call out. That is dependent on your self-employed income.
Got it. So no matter whether you're self-employed or have a W-2, anyone can invest or anyone can do a self-directed IRA.
Correct.
And invest $7,000 every year.
Contribute $7,000. Yeah, but you can invest the whole plan value, which is likely going to be more than that. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there a minimum to start an SDRA? A minimum?
It would depend on the custodian that you wanted to work with. I think one that comes to mind right now, they require like a balance of $250 to remain in the account. So there's a lot of them are probably going to say not really a required minimum. It would just probably depend on the deal and what you want to do there. If you found something that you want to put $25,000 in, you'll likely want to roll over maybe $26,000, keep a little bit in the account if there's a minimum, depending on who you're working with there. If that answers your question.
And your company sets that up, right?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm acting like it's somebody else. Yes, for us, our balance is a $250 balance there. So if you wanted to invest $25,000, $25,250, you'd want to roll over. That'd be your minimum balance requirement just to keep the account open.
Can you start those for kids, like for a college fund type of thing? You have to be 18 and older.
That I wouldn't feel super comfortable answering because it's kind of a gray area, to be honest with you. So some do it and some don't. I believe you have to have earned income in some capacity. Again, it could be W-2, whatever. For an IRA, it's a little bit different. So I don't really have a good answer for that one of whether or not you can do it for kids. Sorry, I know that's not a good answer, but.
Are the annual maintenance fees considered contributions to the 401k or IRA?
They're not. That's separate.
Out of curiosity, what are those maintenance fees?
Yep. So for us, and I'll get into it at the end, but I'll share now. So we do one flat rate for a sign-up fee. That's normally we're offering an end of year special. We're actually cutting our setup price in half by 50%. So this is good timing for the webinar. But the setup fee is $1,995. It's normally $3,995. And then each year there's just a one flat fee, which is $895. So if you guys were to, say you want to do something like this, great. It'd be the $1,995 to set up, and then you wouldn't pay anything until next December, and that's $895. So that includes there's no transaction fees, no wire fees. We help you with the IRS filings. It's called a 5500 EZ for the 401k. there's a 5498 form that's done for an IRA. So we would support with all that, and your account manager, the community, everything's included in those fees. I always like to just point out that there's nothing hidden there.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Also included in those fees, are there, check-in meetings, I guess, throughout the year, or is that limited, or
there's
strategize?
Good question. It'd be unlimited there. So when you, at least in our structure, so everybody gets assigned an account manager. And so you'll have their direct phone number, their email, and account link for them. And there, again, there's no set amount of times that you can meet with them. You'll always have the ability. What a lot of our members do is they just bookmark that calendar link. Any questions they have, you can book 15 minutes, jump in, and then we always reach out quarterly as well, just to check in, see how things are going. So you can expect quarterly at a minimum if you're not reaching out to us directly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. And then I talked about our community a little bit earlier. Those were just 2 screenshots on the left and right side. Somebody on our team asked a question, got some good engagement there, some comments and likes, things like that. And then on the right side there, that was what I was referring to earlier for people that are looking for, syndicators to meet, fund managers to meet, just opportunity. We'll try to record Q&A sessions with different fund managers and syndicators and post them to our community, just so people have, again, connections that can network and have a chance to maybe invest with them. Again, that's just a resource. There's no pressure, obviously, to invest with those people. And then in the middle, we have, so our founder, his name's Damian Lupo. He's also founded a wholesale precious metals company and then a private equity arm as well. So they're not technically in-house, but we do have sister companies that are very connected. And so those are other options as well that are easy to find just through being an eQRP client.
I have a quick question, and I think I already know the answer to this, but just bear with me. So if you're not quite ready to maybe step off and do your own self-directed IRA or 401k at this time, but you are kind of like more of a deal provider maybe for your clients, for them to invest their self-directed funds into, is there an option there where you don't necessarily right now go through that full sign-up fee and for doing your own, but you're kind of a deal provider?
Yeah, we've been trying to work on that, to be honest with you. If that is your situation, I'd love to connect with you offline and to see if there's a way we can strategize to help. See if there's a way we can get you in front of our members. I'd absolutely be willing to talk to you about that. I just say that we don't have like a very streamlined process for that yet, but we're working on it. So I'd love to chat offline if that's what you're thinking about.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. You got it. Cool. And then just a quick case study as an example of how you can use an eQRP plan. So Rich, he's been with us for close to 2 years now, which is crazy that we're almost in 2025, but he has used his account just from the conversations that we've had. I know that he's invested in a car wash facility. He's in multifamily projects. He's got precious metals to diversify in that asset class. He still has money in the stock market, and he's invested in a manufacturing plant and some more asset classes as well. And that's all a part of it. And he has the eQRP 401k option, I should say that. So he's been able to diversify into all of those asset classes through that one plan. He's used our support. He's engaged in community. He's invested in some of the offerings that have actually shown themselves in our community, which is cool. And so that's just a case study of how you can use the plan. And I should even put private money lending in there as well, because that's so popular. And I think that's what he's doing with that extra 20% that he mentioned. So anyway, that's just a quick example there.
Any questions on any of that or anything else yet?
Question, Matthew, is your company eQRP? Is that the name of the company?
Yep, eQRP company. You're exactly right.
I have a question that is probably not appropriate for this session because it's a little too advanced, but I'm curious to know about the unintended pitfalls of UBIT. And I wonder if you have any articles on UBIT in your on the web, on your website, or any resources you can point to?
Yeah, maybe elaborate on that for me a little bit. So you're saying just articles on just the consequences of UBIT, or
how to understand it and when to look for it as you're trying to make an investment decision?
I see.
investment now
Yeah.
is going to generate GBIT. Am I better off using my own personal money or, or my IRA?
Yeah, and it's a good question, and like you said, it's technical. Just one thing off the top of my head, and I'm actually happy to scan to see if we do have any written resources that I could send your way. A lot of our members have, in some cases, had CPAs scan the deal and just see, what they could expect a UBIT burden to be if they're using the IRA option. But at a quick glance, I don't know if I have a great answer for that, but I'd love to look into it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then so on this last slide here, to make it easy on you guys, if you scan the QR code, we have a book summary, and again, that is tailored toward the 401k plan specifically, and it has a couple of things in there about the IRA option. But if you scan the QR code, you get a copy of our eQRP book summary, and then it'll also redirect you to a Calendly link to book a consult call if you'd like. That's totally free, just to talk about what this could look like for your situation, get into some of those weeds. I will point out, I just always like to be clear on expectations. We are in office tomorrow. Next week we'll shut down. I think the IRS is shut down as well, so people can't really establish accounts next week while the IRS is closed. And then we will be fully operational back in office on January 2nd. So we are doing some consult calls during that week of Christmas, though. It just might be kind of harder to find some times. But again, feel free to scan that, schedule a call with us. And then I did not put my email address on there, so let me do that. I can chat it in here. My email is very simple. It's just matthew@eqrp.com.
Okay. I'm going to put it in the chat. Oh, got it. Perfect.
Oh, yep. Just knocked it out. So even, Tyler, for you, I'd love to connect with you offline. Feel free to shoot me an email. We can link up and then absolutely.
Perfect. Well, this is our most on-time meetup in a really long time. I'm very proud of ourselves. We did it. We got through a lot of really interesting information, even got to some advanced topics. So thank you for bringing those up. I think it was Catherine. And we just really appreciate your time, Matthew. You are obviously a wealth of knowledge on all things self-directed IRAs and 401ks, and appreciate everyone's interaction. It's super fun to hear all the questions, and this has been on my list, I think, as I said, for a number of years. So I'm excited to know someone who is an expert in this, and time to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for having me. And then again, feel free to email with any questions. And then Catherine, if you're all right with it, I may just get your email from Suzanne, and then I can follow up on those UDFI resources for you, the UBIT resources.
All right, perfect. Well, the replay and the chat will all be on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well, which is Suzanne and Sarah on YouTube. You can find us that way. It's pretty easy.
Awesome.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
I tried to sign up for the book, and it required me to say who we referred by, and Matthew's not on the list.
And you guys aren't either.
Yeah.
Landon is. Oh, Landon.
Do you want me to get you Matthew's email address? That way you don't have to share yours?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You said it was Matthew at eQRP.
Oh, yes, that's correct. Yeah, we got it all written out for you.
But it should be in the chat there.
Yeah, and we'll, I just cheating.
I don't think we have to, but anyway now.
Right. Good deal. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. Good topic.
Yeah, it was a good one. Not quite there yet. I got all my money spent. Oh, really? Oh. Well,
If you want to do DRW, have some showing. You know, I don't really have time,
I was
but
talking to somebody the other day,
Oh, yes, yeah, I met with him the other day.
Yeah.
I don't care if you are secure or whatever.
Oh, really? Yeah. I have a flyer and he was on my contract. Yeah, because I have some.
Yeah, I'm gonna help him with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. That's your window?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be involved and be a reference.
I'll be getting more.
Oh my God.
Excellent. Nice to meet you as well.
I feel like we always got like our mentor.
And you know, and what we look for is not what, you know, usual lending practices are.
Right.
Right, we were slow, longer term.
Right. You want to get upfront funds and then you pay them off for like 5
Oh,
years.
over 5 years, yeah. 12%.
I was looking at doing that with my mobile home park because we.
Yeah,
I have to sell it.
This is a long
Nice to meet everyone.
Nice
All
to
right,
meet
nice to
you.
meet you too. My partner and I are, you know, a little bit at loggerheads around that. And she wants to do something.
Oh, you know, the woman that was on there, Alicia, who's does
Yeah.
right right? I might contact her because I've been trying
It's
to
not
call
worth
together
arguing
all
about.
different
It's, you know,
sources.
we're brothers.
Oh,
Yeah.
my.
I can just borrow the money
Well,
from
people who
somebody
have,
for, you know, who I was on 3 or 4 months.
they're selling the mobile home on a slow flip
I
model.
know, I wish I did.
Is that what you've been to?
No, I'm doing it the other way. So we own most of the units in this park. I know that's against conventional.
You have a self-directed
They like
IRA.
to own land
When do you have to
and
look?
then have other people own the units and
Right,
then
right.
just collect space rent.
Right.
Where I am, it's a pretty low,
Yeah, you have to be
space
on
rent.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
spent
it's
yesterday.
almost not worth doing.
Okay.
And every day
So,
was.
because we're in a very rural area.
Which I
So
did
we
learn
have
to do.
much
Oh,
more.
Where is it?
South of Tupelo is a little town
Oh,
called
yeah.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
it's,
think I
you know,
decided to
20,000
wait
person
and-
town.
Okay.
But there's not a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
was
housing.
finished
So
tonight,
we're a
all
pretty
the paperwork,
popular
all the different
destination.
pieces.
But we have a lot, you know,
Self-directed
first property
IRA that
place,
we're
we have a lot of
using
bad
to,
tenants. and,
help
you know,
them
it wasn't
out.
well managed. And we've gone in and rehabbed all the trailers and all
Okay.
that, but they're not the kind of things that someone might really want to buy.
No,
because
no,
they're
no.
old and-
As long as
Okay.
we're building it,
Right.
we're not, there's no
Right.
They're
personal
not
use.
like
It's
a
only
mobile
if
home
we
around here
decide to
would
move
be.
in.
Sure.
When we
You
decide to
fix it
move
up and
in.
make it look really
Then I
nice
have to
and
make
the
a
flowers
decision
and
if
little
we
picture
should
fences
transfer
and
it
all that.
outside of the
Right.
IRA.
This is not that kind of
Okay.
park.
That's what you do.
So it's better to have
So-
ownership of the units. So I thought, well, you know.
I
And on a
you know,
traditional rental landlord.
Yeah.
So they all are responsible for utilities and
Right.
all that. We're on city services, so that's not a problem. It's just strictly, you know, how much we rent this unit.
Right, right.
And, you know, I thought, well, if we could attract a couple of
I
investors,
like
you know,
having
basically cost
the-
me
Yeah.
25 to 30 grand to put another unit in.
Right.
But
And
so
I'm renting
like I
this
got
for
a couple
$750 a month.
IRAs in my
I mean, it's pretty good,
right
you know,
now.
pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
And I
So,
Definitely.
I could do the same kind of thing like you,
That's
like
right.
you're doing.
Mhm.
And,
That's how you
Yeah.
would fund it.
so,
Right.
but, you know, I
Yes,
need to get my
present to
partner
them.
over
Yeah.
there. I need to get my partner over the
Yeah.
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 Well, I don't know, have them read the book.
Yeah, slow flip it's
Slow
called.
flip. Oh gosh, the art of the
You
slow
wouldn't
flip.
leave it
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Scott Jelinek,
Yeah, I think I still have it. in my
Yeah.
list.
You know, I mean, it talks about single family homes,
Not
but
do it because they
it
use
can be,
it.
it can be done for
That's
anything,
what
yeah.
he does. but-
Yeah, so they just be borrowing, you know, lending you money on the park. Or
Right.
like you said, the slots or whatever. Yeah.
And what's his last name, Scott?
Jelinek,
Oh, yeah.
J-E-L-I-N-E-K.
Yeah.
Yep.
And my
I remember looking at his
husband's
website after you presented here, I
Okay,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
why did you?
So-
Well, darn, I missed yours last month. I'm sure.
Oh, it's, we were just talking about, you know, the veterans
So I
housing,
was for
group
10
home
years, I was
concepts,
investing in
and
real estate.
Yeah.
Brandon is
Directly
doing
in
group
my
home, not
IRA,
in a charity.
which
I'm
means
doing
the
it for
custodian
charity
Right.
had to do all
purposes,
the
but,
paperwork to take
yeah,
title.
the concepts are similar.
They had
You,
to
you
pay
can
property
afford
taxes, they had to pay
a much,
utilities, they
you
had
know,
to pay everything. It was a
better
nuisance. So I
return
did self-directed
ratio
IRA
if
to take
you
control
create
over
a
all
stream
those
of renters
expenses
inside one
through
big
the
home.
checkbook
Instead of
control that he
renting a
mentioned. So I
four-bedroom
had a
house to a
checking
family,
account set up
for $2,300 a month in Redmond, you could rent a 4-bedroom house to 4 individuals for $5,000 a month.
Right,
property
tax
or whatever.
I just go all of them, and then I keep.
You know, you get.
The co-living is really catching on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something that I have an
You know,
interest, back here. I mean, I know my slow flips and I know when I can do more or not, or if I want to have more of a quicker, more or less cash flow, because, when I'm using a private money lender, it's not a quick, it's not cash flow
Now they
until
just
I pay them off.
Right.
Then it's cash flow. So that's where my 401, that's what I call that, as my
Yeah.
401.
Yeah. Well, it is in
Yeah.
a way. You could throw that into a Roth
Just means they
right
have to
away,
pay
and
the
then,
expenses.
Yeah,
probably
then
do your
I
flips out of the Roth.
Yeah, so the
funds
rent
going
goes
out
to
of the Roth,
them, not to
and
you.
Right.
Now you're
The
inside
rent
that
goes to you, we have
qualified
one.
structure.
See, and that's where I got fuzzy, and I didn't want to ask him about it, because he said you can't lend it to yourself, but what
on board, because I
or
wouldn't
your
allow them to
entities.
Well,
That
what it
makes
means,
sense.
what he means is if you have
The owner
some
of the
kind of
IRA
qualified structure,
collected the rent.
whether it's
directly,
a IRA, a
and then it
401k,
disqualified the
a
IRA.
pre-tax, or a post-tax. So those are 4 big buckets,
Yeah.
right? So you're either paying
So is your
the
custodian?
pre-tax money and
Oh, no.
reduces, you put your money in and it
Forged
reduces your
trust,
taxable
if-
income.
It used to be.
You don't
passed
get
across out of
access to
Bay
that
Area,
money, though. It's
San
inside
Mateo, I
that
think.
401k
Uh-huh.
or IRA.
Yeah,
For post-tax money,
It's
post-tax is
complicated,
called.
but once you get it
Yeah.
all set
So
up.
you take money out of your checkbook and contribute it to
Yeah, that
the
was
Roth.
pretty
right.
I mean, that was,
And then
I've
you
never
don't
even
pay tax
heard
on
of
that, because you've already paid your taxes when
Right.
you earn that,
Right, right.
But anything you earn going forward is tax-free
Right.
inside that Roth.
Yes,
But the money has to go back into the
Yes.
Roth. It doesn't go to you.
Right.
So, but it's your,
so if I have a holdings company or Wyoming holding company, which I do,
Right.
so I don't know if that matters with anonymity or whatnot, but it's still my LLC.
right,
So I could have, I don't know, I don't have a W-2. My husband's rollover 401s
right,
that I'm trying to convince him, get that out and go diversify.
right.
That can be where that
Well,
401
he
can,
could roll the 401, and that's what I'm doing. So
Okay.
like, what we did is we set up a C corporation, because
Okay.
we have a bunch of rentals.
Sure.
And we set up a C corporation as a tax avoidance strategy, essentially. And we take 10% of all of our rents and funnel it to the C corp as a property manager. So that's a property management company.
Mhm.
But that 10% of the rents funds our medical reimbursement program, our accountable plan, our, all
Right,
the various expenses, the cell phones in the office,
Sure.
all that stuff. Right. So that's a way to pay for all that stuff tax-free. So on the C corp, you can create a 401k. So any additional income we got into the C corp, we could funnel that into the 401k. But to create the 401k, we created it there, but to fund it, we're rolling over IRAs and other 401ks into that entity.
Okay.
So now there's going to be a pot of money sitting
Right,
there.
right,
Now we could invest in slow flips.
Right,
We can invest
right.
in multifamily. We can invest in an oil well. We can invest
Okay.
in, whatever inside that self-directed 401k.
Yeah.
Right. So your husband can take it from a traditional company-owned 401k, which doesn't allow you any other investments other
Right.
than
right.
Schwab or
Yeah.
Fidelity or
Right.
whatever it is. Move it to a self-directed one
Yes.
like he's got.
Yes.
And
And that entity, because he could make it an LLC for
doesn't need to be an
self-directed.
LLC.
It doesn't have to.
No, no.
So it's private and he can lend it to my LLC. That's the part I
No,
think to buy slow flips with or whatever.
that's what you can't do.
Yeah.
So that's why they said spouses are disqualified.
right.
So what you can do, if he wanted to do slow flips, is he would do slow flips out of that, directly out of the 401.
And the 401 just
Yeah.
owns that house.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then all the funds.
All the funds go back
Yeah.
in there, and then when you get to retirement age, you can start taking distributions out of that 401k.
Okay. All right.
Out of the, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like any other IRA or 401k. When you hit 55 and a half, you can start taking
59.
money, or 59.
59. I'll be there next year.
Yeah, so you can start taking money out of that.
Yeah.
At that
And you don't
point
have
without
to
tax consequences.
Actually retire from UW2.
No.
Okay. It's just an age
But
thing.
but it'll show up as, if it's traditional 401k, it'll show up as taxable income.
Yeah.
If it's a Roth 401k, it's not taxable
Yeah.
income.
Yeah.
So if you grew 10 slow flips in there and we're getting, 10 grand a month coming in,
Right.
you could then start to take that money out of there and,
Reinvest or whatever.
or live on it, or,
Right.
however you wanted to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so it's just a matter of, it gets so confusing,
It
but it's
does.
either pre-tax money or post-tax money.
Right.
Anything that's post-tax is called Roth.
Okay.
Roth applies to either an IRA or a 401k.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So, and it also applies to self-directed or not self-directed. Those are just, categories.
terms. Okay.
So, like this is the IRA channel. This is 401k channel. They both
They're
have
both Roths.
pre-tax and post-tax.
Uh-huh.
They both have self-directed and non-self-directed. So you
Okay.
can have options on.
So self-directed Roth is what
is what
they
you
would-
really want.
where you can.
Yeah. Now his
Okay.
program sounds interesting. The fees sound a little high to me. 4,000 to set it up. It's probably
Well, two.
okay.
I think they cut it
Two
down to
now, just until the end of the year though.
Oh, is it? Oh,
It's
okay.
just special till the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
And then 895, like I pay
A year.
$350 for my self-directed IRA.
Who's your custodian?
They are what's the name of
There's
the
so
bank?
many out there.